The moment I saw Christine walk into breakfast first, I had to do a double take. For a moment I thought Nick didn't give her the hug of death in time, or the edit for the previous episode was just teasing us and Nick hugged someone else first. I had totally forgotten that the murder in plain sight is a slow acting death. Nick walked in next and I wondered if he was slightly surprised too. One thought that passed through my mind was if the Faithfuls were going to stay on the theory that a traitor put themselves on death row despite the fact they had thought it was Patrick in this scenario. If they do, then that spells bad news for Joanna, as the only other player left from death row is Christine. There were definitely raised questions about Joanna, but for different reasons. With everyone back at breakfast, the consensus was that someone was recruited, whether they accepted or not was the question. Once Siobhan had told them about the curse, most of the players were thinking that the intended victim was given a drink. That's the beauty of mixing things up when it comes to the murder in plain sight. People are expecting a drink as the means for murder, but it could be a name written on a board, a hug, or their photo thrown in water. The paranoia was off the charts. Christine took this moment to lay all her cards on the table as to why she thinks Ben is one of the traitors, accusing him in front of everyone. She had some reasonable points for thinking it, but Christine listing Ben playing with his beard as possibly one of them was funny. As he was touching his beard, it made me think of one of the textbook old-time villains in TV and film. Nick started laying the groundwork for possibly getting rid of Pordy by saying he thinks Pordy's the reason why Nick is still in the game. This is technically true. Pordy and the other traitors really should have got rid of Nick a while ago. As the mission played out, one by one players were made safe. When Siobhan took Ben, Christine and Faye into the castle, I thought, great, they don't have the element of them lying in the coffin. Then I knew that I had spoken too soon. They just didn't want to do it outside. Must have been too cold, or production didn't have permission to make 3 massive holes. At least they didn't show the coffin being buried. All the players had to pick who they thought was murdered and place a black rose in their coffin. The majority of the players placed their rose in Ben's coffin. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen this mission, I still can't get used to the moment they close the coffin of the murdered faithful. In this case, Christine was the victim of the curse. There were no tricks or misleading edits in episode 8. Nick completed the task in time. While Ben seemed convinced of Faye's innocence due to how she reacted throughout the whole mission, others saw things as another reason as to why Faye is a traitor. Amy started the round table and scrutinised Vanessa. Kelly also jumped on Vanessa. Who could have seen that coming? Yeah, I'm not shocked. It just came an episode later than I thought. I'm also not shocked that Joanna, being the only survivor from the death row list, was brought up. This was brought up by Faye, but nobody spoke about it further. At this point I thought either Faye, Joanna or Vanessa were going to be banished. It's funny that when Pordy blackmailed Nick, he said something on the lines about wanting Nick to be a loyal traitor. Now Pordy dragged Nick into his back and forth with Ben. Pordy must have sensed he needed to go into survivor mode, but I'm not sure if it actually was needed in this round table, as I think it did some damage. The others looked like they had enough of what was going on with Pordy, Nick and Ben. How long did that actually go on for? Oyen revisited a couple of things regarding Pordy, and that's when I thought Oyen might vote for Pordy. Though Nick and Joanna received the vote each, it was between Pordy and Vanessa. Pordy, the last original traitor, was banished. I put my hands up at how wrong I was. Pordy was my pick for the first traitor to be banished, but he was actually the 4th. He lasted a lot longer than I had anticipated. Weathering the storm at first, but once Eamon was banished, he seemed to be off people's radar. I think Pordy made a couple of missteps, but his last one proved to be his downfall, blackmailing Nick. Once he did that, I had a feeling Pordy wouldn't win. It was a question of when he would be banished and not if. Those 2 blackmails really didn't go down well for Pordy.
You might know my family, but you've met one of them. My son Andrew, and I am a traitor.
I believe if Pordy hadn't said anything to Nick or Ben, Vanessa would probably be the one banished. Faye could have easily pointed her vote in Vanessa's direction as well as Ben, as he was 50-50. This was the moment I believed the traitors were going to win this. The narrative is firmly being pushed that Vanessa and possibly Oyen are traitors. This time it's because they didn't vote for Faye because they couldn't get the numbers, completely forgetting that both Oyen and Vanessa have been on the Pordy as a traitor train when Eamon and Caitlin were still in the game. There's nothing new here. My hope was that Nick didn't blackmail Oyen or Vanessa, and for the sake of everyone else, Ben. It was more than likely Nick was going to blackmail Ben, which would likely see one or both of them win. Let's be truthful, Amy, Kelly and possibly Faye will vote Vanessa and Oyen out, as they won't turn on each other. I can only be sure about Amy and Kelly in this scenario. Joanna is hard to tell, as she will be back and forth on her vote, but the others will vote her out too, or she'll be murdered. Wilkins been on his way out for quite some time. Pauldie has left the clue, but I don't think enough people will take notice. The last 3 episodes could end up being a very predictable affair unless someone, whether a faithful or traitor, shakes things up. Maybe Siobhan shakes things up and brings in the seer power, or even the dagger to give someone 2 votes. We shall see how it all plays out.